Hello, John Bloodworth, Gentleman Crafter here with some more paper piecing. This time we're going to do a diagonal tulip. Last week we did a straightforward one. This time around we're going to do a diagonal one, which actually is great for radiating patterns. So there's a few strips to cut from just two colours. My colours today I've chosen are quite similar, but you should still see the result. As ever, I've printed the pattern onto foundation paper, and of course I will be working on the back. So part 1 will go down right side facing up within the dotted outline, and part 2 will go right side facing down on top. I will then pin those two pieces in place, and then stitch on the line between parts 1 and 2. Now for some reason my pattern printed out without dashed lines, but yours will print with dashed lines. Basically make sure that you are stitching on the dashed line, not either side of it. Because we're working so precisely, it's important to stitch down the centre of that line. As always, trimming threads as we go helps us stay neat and tidy. And when you've done that, unpin and fold back part 2 to cover its section. Now part 3 is going to lock parts 1 and 2 in place along the top edge, and that's this part here. So we'll position the piece of fabric right side facing down over the top of parts 1 and 2. Pin it in place, and then we'll stitch on the line that separates parts 3 from parts 1 and 2. As ever, a reminder, a lock stitch or reversed stitch at the start and end of your stitching line helps to keep things from shifting or moving or becoming unravelled later on. Pressing with a finger press will give you a nice temporary crease to work with. If you prefer to press with a mini iron and a pressing mat as you work, it will give you a much crisper finish and you'll have less to press at the end. Next up is part 4, which is this triangular shape. Now make sure that you get it from the right colour. And we're also going to be very careful about how we position it. Because it's going to go right side facing down, we need to make sure that we flip it over so that it will flip back in the right place. Line it up with the corner of part 1. No, part 2 in fact. That's the square that was landlocked, as in it's in the middle of everything. Then we'll sew along the line that separates part 4 from parts 1 and 2. It doesn't matter which end you start, so you can take your choice, whatever works for you. So hopefully we got it right. Yes, there we go. So it folded back correctly over part 4. Now part 5 is this large part here, and rather than complicate the cutting, I've just basically cut this piece as a large rectangle. Now as long as it's within, as long as it stretches from side to side, there can be a tiny little overlap. We're going to trim later obviously anyway, but just make sure that your strip covers the entirety of that section. As I pin in place, let me remind you that there's a Facebook group where we're sharing what we make. So please do pop along and have a look and join up. We're on number 10 of what will eventually be 50 foundation paper piecing patterns. They're running throughout 2022 every Friday. So if you'd like to see the rest of them, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And of course, like the video. That helps you get to see more of my content. I do a lot of papercraft, mixed media, and also designing stuff for the Scan and Cut, Brother Scan and Cut. So if you're into any of that stuff, please do check out the rest of my content. As the kids call it. I don't know what they call it, to be honest. I think I'm so out of touch. I'm 50 next year. I'll be able to join Saga. Ooh, there's a life goal. If you're not in the UK, you probably won't know what that is, but it's a club for over 50s where you get discounts and stuff. I think. Could have changed. Anyway, folding back and pressing. If you're working with directional patterns, you might want to sort of pay attention to which way round you're placing things, but to be honest, I quite like the randomness of it. Now, because that did overlap the next section that we want to sew, which is part 6, I'm going to use my add a quarter ruler and trim away the bit that hangs over. That then gives me a perfect 1/4 inch guideline to position the corner triangle on. I'm also going to do that for part 7. Just while I've got everything out. So we can already see that diagonal tulip forming. The corner pieces are basically to finish it off. So again, we're positioning that right side facing down so that it will fold back, show the right side, and cover the remainder of that pattern. If you are playing along with this series and you like any particular shapes or styles, please feel free to leave comments on YouTube or on my website, and I will do my best to try and include them before the year is out. It's going very fast already. Can't believe we're in March. Now, because I've got space, I am going to basically position both pieces before I go over to the sewing machine, and that way I can basically just stitch them both in place without having to come away from the machine. As ever, we're stitching along the dashed lines. And then just a quick trim in between the pieces. This one, as I say, would work well as a radiating pattern. For example, turning them 90 degrees and doing them in clusters of 4. Or even putting them on the corners of a 9 block. So maybe with a solid colour block in between. And that would give you a 9-inch square. So 4 of those would give you a small cushion. If you'd like to know how many blocks to make for a particular size project, I do include a chart with the download pattern, so make sure to check that out if you want to start making multiples of these. And then we've got all the parts sewn into position. The final thing to do is to trim around the solid outline to finish the block. Now you could do it with scissors, but a rotary trimmer and a ruler would be a more traditional thing, and because you've got them out anyway, having trimmed your parts, you may as well. With the half square triangle you just saw me get rid of, do remember you can keep a bunch of those if you're making lots of these squares and stitch them together to make squares for another block. And there we go, there's our diagonal tulip. I hope you enjoy making those and will share what you make with me somewhere on my social feeds. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you again next week.